It's a talkative crowd tonight. I like it. Do what? I ran her off the last Tuesday. She's like, I get enough of this at home. All right, we're glad that you're here tonight. They're asking about Kristen. She's in Dallas. I talked to her on the drive over. She asked if I was ready for class. It's been kind of a crazy week. I said, my biggest fear is that I fall asleep during my own lesson. Yesterday we went and ran regional cross country at noon, and then had Midnight Madness, got basketball started this morning. They wanted to do that. I'm like, go for it. They spent the night in the locker room. Something young people do, right? I didn't spend the night in the locker room. I went to my house, but got up, made breakfast for them. I mean, just the whole 9 yards, but I had practice again this afternoon. So it's been about 36 hours and more adrenaline and not a lot of sleep. So anyway, hopefully you guys can carry the class load a little bit tonight. We'll get through this. We've talked about David. We've talked about Jonathan. We've talked about really that era and what it's like to have a heart after God's, and what it's like to have partnership with people that have the same heart for God in Jonathan. And tonight I want to kind of carry on that lineage and talk about Solomon. They say the nut doesn't fall too far from the tree sometimes, and we'll find out a little bit about that. So my first question for you tonight is, what are the first things that come to mind when you hear the name Solomon? A lot of in-laws. You know, they say, you know what the difference between in-laws and outlaws are, don't you? Outlaws are wanted. So I don't take that home and share with anybody, but somebody shared that with me one time. I love my in-laws, and that's a great thing. But yeah, lots of in-laws. Okay, what else? Wisdom, okay? Those two don't seem to really go together. Lots of in-laws and wisdom. What else? Wealth. Okay. There's more. I'll wait. It's okay. Okay, power. What are some of his accomplishments? Yeah. Built the temple. His palace. All right. Yeah, lots of great building, fortified cities. Really a pretty impressive time. It's kind of known as the golden age of Israel during this time. Okay. Yeah, imports. Let's don't go there. Okay. Okay. Kyle spent a while talking about Ecclesiastes, going through that. He's responsible for writing some wisdom books, right? Who are his parents? David and Bathsheba. Typically, if you're going to be a king, what's the rules of passing that kingdom on? Who typically gets it? Okay. Is that apply to Solomon? Okay. So he's not the oldest of David's sons, but he is the one that's chosen to be heir to the throne. If you would, turn over to 1 Kings chapter 3. I want to kind of hit some bullet points. We're going to talk about his wisdom first. I think that it's the first thing that typically comes to mind is, man, this guy was supposed to be the wisest of all. So we'll start in verse 5. It says, at Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what I shall give you. And Solomon said, you have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart towards you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father, although I am but a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in, and your servant is in the midst of your people whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this your great people? It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this. And God said to him, because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself long life or riches or the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been before you, and none like you shall arise after you. I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you all of your days. And if you will walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and my commandments, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days. Wow. Okay. That's a pretty impressive thing. Matthew 7:7 says, ask and it'll be given to you. Seek and you'll find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks it will be opened. Man, there's no better example than that right there. And God bestowed those things upon him. And so he began his reign with, is there any better way to get it started than what we just read? Okay, let's go. And he's sitting in this great time. David had positioned him and left him with a strong kingdom. He now has this divine calling. He's given wisdom. He's going to be given great wealth. Everything that you asked for and a bunch of things you didn't ask for. But in the end, he's still left with a thing called choice. And he's going to get to choose how this is going to play out. And what do you do when you have all the cards? How do you handle that? And we're going to get to watch this unfold a little bit. But it starts off with great promise, full of wisdom, wealth, favor from God. And we kind of know how, as Paul Harvey used to say, how the rest of the story goes, right? But we're going to get to watch that unfold a little bit and see if we can draw some conclusions for ourselves. We live in one of the greatest eras in mankind, in the history of the world, where in a country where we have great wealth, we have access to all types of knowledge. What do we do with it? We feel the favor of God. We have his divine word that inspires us, that guides our steps. There's a lot of similarities. And I'm not going to go there on the wisdom part. That probably doesn't apply to me, but some of you guys out there, I know it does. Solomon's wisdom. It says there was nobody before you that will have been smarter, and there's nobody afterwards. There's some pretty smart folks that have walked the planet, right? Can you think of any? You can name yourself if you want. I don't care. I mean, if that's the first one that comes to mind, don't be shy. It's me. C.S. Lewis, what? Einstein, Hawking. I'm lucky enough to be a world history teacher. We just covered these three guys. Anybody want to guess on the great three, the big three, Greek history? Yeah. Those three guys, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. it said that Aristotle knew about as completely everything there was to know about his time. That's a pretty impressive statement. But maybe he was reading all of Solomon's writings, right, and learning from him. But that's a pretty impressive thing to say about a person, that he knew just about everything there was to know. We call that a know-it-all, right? And he might have been. These guys were pretty smart. I think about Vicini and The Princess Bride. Anybody watch that movie? He lists those guys, and he goes, you know these three? Plato, Socrates, Aristotle? Yeah. Morons. So you got Vicini out there. Obviously, we know how that story ended. 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 31, there's a list of men that were pretty wise in their time. He says, for he was wiser than all other men, wiser than Ethan, the Ezrahite, and Heman, Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame was in all the surrounding nations. Well, I got just a little curious. Not a lot curious, just a little. These guys, who are they? Ethan and Heman, they're leaders of worship in God's house. They were noted among the wisest people of their day. Calcol means sustaining in Hebrew, and Darda means pearl of knowledge. Mamas had some great aspirations for their babies at that time, right? But these four men are listed right up there with Solomon and people of the day, and it says, and Solomon was wiser. He was above all of them. There in verse 32, it says he spoke 3,000 proverbs. His songs were 1,005. He spoke of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the wall. He spoke also of beasts and birds and reptiles and fish. And people of all nations came to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. It's a pretty impressive resume of things he knew and the people that knew he knew. So I want to go back to the initial request. Why do you think Solomon asked God for wisdom instead of wealth or victory over his enemies or one of those things?
It indicates he's pretty smart to start with, because if he has the wisdom, the other things probably will follow anyhow.
Okay.
3 verse 7 indicates he was very humble about the request. And he said, I'm a little child.
Yeah.
And he recognized his place, his standing, and the task before him, unlike maybe he did it later.
Okay.
But he sure did then.
And we've talked about humility in here the last few weeks, that, man, that's a key ingredient to having a heart like God's, okay? Being a man after God's own heart. Any other thoughts come to mind?
He realizes who the people are that God has placed him over. They're God's people. And that's an awesome, awesome responsibility.
Yeah. He gets it. And you think sometimes people that are put into high position or status early in life, a lot of times don't. They take it and go the other direction with it. And he's one that truly gets it. Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
With great power, great wealth, comes great responsibility and wisdom to use that power.
Okay. Somebody back here.
The difference in being smart and being wise.
Okay.
He probably had a good education because of who his dad was,
Yeah.
but being able to make good decisions because of that smartness. We can think of a handful of people probably that are more, they're smart, but
wisdom is the proper application of knowledge, right? Isn't that kind of the easy to use definition? And so you're right, he's been brought up with everything. If he's been paying any attention as he's been running around the kingdom, he's had a great example in his father. I'm sure Bathsheba is a good mama that put him on that path and helped him in that. Okay. Meekness. Well, we see that take off. We have the story about him judging between the two mothers and the baby. And that wowed the crowd, right? And that spread across not only the kingdom, but throughout the world. And so he gained fame throughout the ancient world that people would travel just to hear what he had to say and be impressed. If you look over in 1 Kings chapter 10, we'll hit a story real quick about the Queen of Sheba. I'll just start in verse 6. Yes, sir.
I ran across this the other day somewhere. Knowledge is knowing that tomato is fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in fruit.
That's true. Very true. I like that. Yeah. Okay, verse 6. And she said to the king, "The report was true that I heard in my own land of your words and of your wisdom. But I did not believe the reports until I came and my own eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told to me. Your wisdom and prosperity surpassed the report I had heard." And that's not typical, right? Usually it's, we embellish it so much that when we get to the real deal, it's like, okay. She's like, they didn't even tell me the half of what I'm seeing and hearing. Happy are your men, happy are your servants who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. Because the Lord loved Israel forever, he has made you king that you may execute justice and righteousness. Not only does she get it about his wisdom, she gets it about where it came from. That's pretty impressive. Sometimes those outside perspectives are like, whoa, okay. It's just a subtle reminder to Solomon that God is behind all of this. Okay? If you skip down to verse 23 and 24, it says, "Thus King Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom, and the whole earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his mind." And that kind of draws to conclusion what the Queen of Sheba had just said. The whole earth. We mentioned earlier he wrote the 3 of the wisdom books, Proverbs. Just talks about wisdom for daily life. It's a great daily thing, Ecclesiastes, reflecting on the meaning of life, and it's really a great synopsis about what he had done. Like I went and tried everything under the sun, and it's a chasing after the wind if it's not in the right spot. If you're not chasing after the right thing, everything else is meaningless. And then the Song of Solomon, which is a great book on godly relationship and what that's supposed to look like. Along with that, he made Jerusalem a center of knowledge and this hub of wisdom and the collection of it. Along with that, he made Jerusalem a center for worship, as we know that he's going to build the temple. When you put him in perspective historically, he makes it into the textbook that I get to teach out of. We spend a lot of time talking about the historical Bible in my classes, mainly because I'm ready for somebody to fire me. No, I'm not kidding. To move on, but I'm going to just speak what it is. And I don't know, it's probably 10 years ago that the education system actually opened it up where you could study that as a historical document, world history. And you can use the Bible as an historical document. And we do. We spent quite a bit of time in it, and we'll continue. Right now, we're in the middle of the Roman Empire and Christianity. We've stalled out there for just a while. We'll worry about the Huns later, right? But for now, we get to talk about Jesus and what he looked like walking the earth. And it's pretty cool. And so kids get a little bit of taste of that. But historically speaking, we know that he was a wise ruler. He was, during this time of peace and prosperity, there are great public works that were happening. His influence impacted the entire world. When we think about being able to be a speaker for the Word of God, he has the mouthpiece right there. He's got it. He's got the whole world that's listening to what he has to say. On top of that, he has unequaled wealth to go with it. So what a great time in the history of Israel. Well, as you know, David was not able to build the temple, so that was given to Solomon, and he had a strong desire to do it. We know he had the wisdom and the knowledge to do it right. He dedicated that temple with prayer, and it says the glory of God filled that temple. Anybody know how many years it took to build? If we're doing Bible trivia night? 7 years to build. Solomon's house took 13. That's sometimes you read that and you're like, ooh, that makes you a little uneasy. But this temple is going to become the spiritual center for Israel. And he's really living out and fulfilling the desires of his father David. And it's kind of fun to read that and watch that story unfold. And during this time, he gets it. He is all in. He's going to go ahead and do other great works. He's going to fortify cities. He amassed great wealth through trade, whether it was gold, silver, cedar, different woods, exotic things. Over in 1 Kings 9, 4 through 9, I'll read this. It says, and as for you, if you'll walk before me, as David your father walked, with integrity of heart and uprightness, do according to all that I have commanded you, and keep my statutes and my rules, then I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever, as I promised David your father, saying, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. But, if we could just stop right there before we get to the but, that sounds really good. Everything is in its perfect place. But if you turn aside from following me, you or your children, and do not keep my commandments and my statutes that I have set before you, but go and serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land that I have given them, and the house that I have consecrated for my name I will cast out of my sight, and Israel will become a proverb and a byword among all the peoples. And this house will become a heap of ruins. Everyone passing by it will be astonished and will hiss, and they will say, why has the Lord done thus to this land and to this house? Then they will say, because they abandoned the Lord their God, who brought their fathers out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold of other gods and worshiped them and served them. Therefore the Lord has brought all this disaster on them. It's kind of that outside looking in perspective again. People are going to know why it came to ruins. They stopped following the God that brought them out of Egypt, that did all these miraculous signs, that gave the wisdom to Solomon. I mean, you think about all of the amazing things, and people from the outside looking in are going to be able to see that with their own eyes. So the blessings that come with wisdom and wealth and prosperity and trade and all of these great things we've kind of talked about. What temptations come with something like this? We're looking at the other side of the coin. What's the temptations?
Look what I have done.
Okay? Pride? It had to have been a little bit difficult to have all these people telling you how smart you are all the time, right? Man, I'm just coming to listen to you. That'd have been a difficult, I would think, if you're susceptible to that kind of thing. What else? Let me ask you this question. Can material prosperity affect spirituality? How so? Okay.
That was Israel's history.
Yeah?
I think in ancient times, there was a lot more of a belief system that if you were prosperous, it was because you were obedient and you were blessed by God. If you were not prosperous, there was a sin problem.
Okay.
And I think that's the whole background of Job. His friends
Mm-hmm.
blamed him. What did you do?
Yeah.
And he was blameless. And he was an exception to what their culture was, how they viewed it. And so it's really, I think, challenging, for us, and we
Mhm.
see our wealth gets in the way so many times. We just want to hold on to everything and be selfish with it. And I'm not saying they weren't that way then. I just think there was maybe a different perception
Mhm.
about it, because if somebody wasn't wealthy, they did something wrong.
Yeah.
And it was a curse that they were paying for. And that was that was what people believed. That was just the way it was.
Yeah. Can material prosperity have a positive effect on spirituality? Or is it always negative? No trick questions tonight, I promise.
Make a comparison with Joseph, Arimathea, who seemed to use his wealth very well, very wisely, and the rich young ruler whose wealth was sending him down the wrong path.
Okay.
So it can be, but according to Jesus, and that's pretty rare.
Yeah. Okay. We're some of the wealthiest people on the planet, right? Y'all agree with that? It's very easy to get stingy with our money. It's very easy to say, well, I'll just write a check for that instead of being the hands and feet for that. We tend to separate some of those things out, and in turn, we distance ourselves from seeing the good that our monies can bring.
Nathan to do it for us, pay the bills.
Right. And that's dangerous ground and this is more of the life application a little bit for us. I'll talk about a congregation that I worked with for a while. They had fallen into that. Let's just write a check. And we had come from a place that the last congregation we were at that was not that way. And we're like, listen, they want pajamas for the children's home. Let's go buy the pajamas. Let's don't just give them a check and say, go get some. And slowly, a little bit at a time, they are like, okay. And we got others involved in that, and they were wanting to do that, and it completely flipped. And they were ready at that point. They're like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then we got into the delivery mode. There's nothing more fun than going handing out PJs to a bunch of kids. And you get to see that, and then all that does is make you want to do more. And when we send these kids out into mission opportunities for them to go see that firsthand, they'll come back with nothing in their pockets because they want to just give everything they own away when they see that. And it helps them understand wealth applied and properly distributed to help those that are in need. And Solomon starts out this way. He's using every bit of it, and he's rolling it into the temple, right? And it's magnificent. I can't even imagine what that structure looked like when it was finished. And we have descriptions of it, but I can't get my mind wrapped around that. And so he was going full steam ahead into that. I think for us, we see Solomon later on use that all in a negative fashion. He's now using that money to build stuff that's not what God wanted. And that's one of those lessons a little bit for us to kind of just count the cost. Like, okay, well, how is this working out for me? Where am I in that? Our culture today measures success differently than how God measures it. How does our culture measure success? Yeah. And it's accolades, accumulation, say again. Status and title. For a long time there was that bumper sticker back in the 80s or whatever. It was like, he who has the most toys wins or something like that. And it's that who can accumulate. And that's dangerous ground, right? Think about what could we do with that to benefit the kingdom. So that's just one of the lessons from Solomon. Maybe the next lesson, and I don't think one that anybody's struggling with right now. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Okay? For a guy that had all the wisdom in the world, he might have bit off more than he could chew. Okay? 1 Kings 11. We'll just read all the first 4 verses. It says, "Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, Hittite women from the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the people of Israel, you shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods." Why not marry them? Going to turn your heart away from me. It says, Solomon clung to these in love. He had 700 wives who were princesses and 300 concubines. And his wives turned away his heart. For when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods. And his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. It's a lot to think about. These marriages were oftentimes political alliances. It's how you make treaties with each other. It was a very common practice. Alexander the Great, as he's spreading this thing we called Hellenism, he had a great idea. It's like when we go into a place, we want to bring wisdom and knowledge, and we want you to open your gates and welcome us in. And when we do that, I want my soldiers to go and take a wife, a local wife, and we want to have babies with them because it'll subdue the population. They won't want to rise up and try to kick us out. Very similar right here is what's happening. Those foreign wives, they're invading his heart mainly, but it's going to lead to the corruption and downfall of the Israelite nation. A little scary. Deuteronomy 17:17 says that he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver and gold. And this was kind of that set of rules for when you have kings over you. Here's what you don't need to be doing. And Solomon is going to trample that one.
The next part of that
Uh-huh.
that you said in 17 is interesting, because in 18 it says, "And it shall come about when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself a copy of this law on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priest, and it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, by carefully observing all the words of this law and its statutes, that his heart may not be lifted up above his countrymen, and that they may not turn aside from the commandment to the right or to the left, in order that he and his sons may continue long in his kingdom in the midst of Israel." I wonder how many kings actually even wrote it through once.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably might have stopped at 16. Don't read the rest of that. Just let it go. Give me the details. Well, so there's going to be some consequences, right? What are some of those consequences? Yeah. There's going to be consequences on multiple levels here. First of all, there's a spiritual consequence that we just read about. Like, man, it's gonna divide your heart. This is going to separate us. David had been holy gods, man after God's own heart. His heart was wholly there. When he messed up, you could see it breaking, right? And Solomon's going to have his heart compromised here. There's going to be some national consequences. When Solomon passes, the kingdom is going to be torn apart. It's going to be divided. And that was because of Solomon's disobedience. And it started out as a little thing, and it turned into a pretty big deal, right? And you see that that spiritual downfall is it's gonna be like a floodgate that's gonna open up. And sometimes we run across people that way. It's like, I've messed up so many times now, why even bother? And you kind of almost get the sense that that's where Solomon is at. It's like, all right, if I'm going to build something to Molech, I might as well build it to, Ashtoreth or whoever. Where does it end? If I'm going to build one, I'll just build them all. And, you hear Christian comedians talk about Solomon all the time. It's like, it's hard enough to keep one woman happy, but you took on 700 wives and 300 not wives that are going to do nothing but stir the pot, right? Ecclesiastes is going to talk a little bit about that regret, I feel like. You just see that kind of unfold. And the reflection on the wasted time of his pursuits. I think the scary part about it is with all the wisdom in the world, you can still fall away. It does not guarantee obedience. But we said wisdom is the proper application of knowledge. We just read that set of rules all the way through it, right? You need to be reading it a lot. Well, he wasn't properly applying what he knew. Knowledge of right and wrong is something that's got to be followed at least once a week on Sundays at 10:30, right? Isn't that how it goes? When are we supposed to do that? How often are we supposed to follow it? Hopefully every morning when you get up. And then at night, you're like, okay, let's push the reset button. Let's get up tomorrow and just try to be a better version. Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. How do we guard our heart? Man, right and wrong has got to be followed by consistent faithfulness every day. Solomon's downfall began in his heart. And those divided affections led to divided worship. It's going to lead to a divided kingdom. And the thing about compromise with us, with him, it's subtle. It's not like this big decision that just hits us like, yep, I'm going to go ahead and just turn my back on God right here. We look back at the beginning of Solomon's journey. He's like, I'm just a kid. Help me out. I need you. Later on, he's building temples to foreign gods that are disgusting. Solomon likely justified these alliances as political. Well, okay, everything's going good. How do we keep peace? Right? Appeasement is not a way to keep peace. Appeasement is a quick way to get into a war. And he tried to appease and make these alliances. And over time, those compromises eroded the foundation of what he had started with, and that was with God. Okay. We talk about this. We talked about it yesterday before we ran. Man, we want to get off to a great start, but how you start isn't near as important as how you finish. Finish the race. Do everything that you can. And the thing about it is, there's always a little bit more in reserve than we feel like there is. And sometimes we feel like we've gone as far as we can go, and we can't go any further, and we're ready to throw up our hands. But we just need to be reminded there's a little bit more inside of each one of us to push through. Faithfulness isn't just a sprint, right? It's a distance race for the length of our life. And sometimes we forget that. Solomon's early glories, man, they kind of land with a resounding thud when you think about where he started and where it ended. And really, it ought to be the other way around. It doesn't matter how rough a start you get off to. Man, can we have a great finish and end on a high note? As I was looking through and just reading through Solomon's life, one of the biggest lessons I think to learn from him is being able to stay faithful in times of prosperity. Stay faithful when things are going well. When life is rough, I want to say that that sounds bad. That's easy. There's nowhere else to turn to. We turn to God in times of difficulties, right? But where do we turn in times of prosperity, in times of peace, when things are going well? And that's I'm talking to me. Y'all can get something out of this if you like, but it's really, it hits me. Because when things are going good, I kind of sit back and idle a little bit and think, okay, I got this. Boy, and the next thing you know, I've been turned around. I don't know if I'm coming or going. We can thank the wisdom literature and Solomon for giving us a little bit of insight and thinking about how that applies to us. Any other comments before we finish up this evening? Okay, I'd like to pray over us, and then the evening will be yours. Father, we just give you thanks for the day. We're thankful for the opportunity to come here this evening and just look into your word and into the life of Solomon, and where we see so many great characteristics in him, and we can relate maybe to a lot of those. We live in a time of great prosperity, and Lord, we know who you are, and we love you, and we know that you love us. And I just pray that our words and our actions show that each day. I pray that you don't let subtlety let us slip away, that you will provide people that will line our path, that will hold us accountable to what our calling is in you. Lord, I know that you can restore anything from anyone's life. And Lord, I just pray that we allow you to come in and continue to purify our hearts each day, that we will renew ourselves each day, that we can make choices that reflect our love for you and choices that will shine a light into your kingdom. Lord, help us be reminded that we too have a voice to share a message about who you are and who your Son is to the world around us. And Lord, I just pray that you give us a spirit of boldness and courage to do that. And give us wisdom, Lord, that we might be able to use that to further the borders of your kingdom. We're thankful for your son, Jesus, and we pray all these things in his name. Amen.